there he is. Thank you so much for agreeing to spend Valentine's Day with me, Billy, and I promise I picked out the perfect movie for us. Necromantic. Are you ready to get started? I can tell by your expression that you are. Let's go! Billy? Billy? Billy, you always do this. Every single time we watch a movie together, you fall asleep because you just aren't interested. Well, I've got you this time, buddy. I came with backup. Are you ready to watch some Faces of Death? I know you can't ignore this one.
There were only two faces that I could recognize, a young woman and a priest. Everything was quiet, and the funeral seemed endless. I had no reason for this dream.
Billy! I can tell you're asleep again. Come on, dude. Finally, you wake up! I have one more movie to watch with you, Billy, and you better at least try to sit through this with me. Please, it's Valentine's Day. Guinea Pig 2, Flowers of Flesh and Blood. I can tell you're asleep, Billy. It appears that we're spending Valentine's Day a different way. Final girls. Strong, independent, usually virginal for some reason, but not always.
Me? Virgin? We work with what we have.
If action movies have Arnold Schwarzenegger, then horror movies have final girls. They are our heroes. They're the ones that come up against the villains. They're the ones that triumph at the end of the day. And if there's one thing that I think we all need to see this Valentine's Day, it's the true appreciation of a strong, independent woman who doesn't need a man to make her strong. Wait, I said strong twice. And as much as I won't deny that I am a married woman this Valentine's Day, that doesn't take away from the fact that I'm pansexual. Many of these crushes might not be active crushes that I still have to this day, because I don't really think that I actively crush on fictional characters anymore, but regardless, these are characters that either I found very formative, very inspiring, and yes, when I say formative, I am referring to my taste in women. As a pansexual woman, I am attracted exclusively to soft boys, girls who can probably kick my ass, and then anyone whose gender I can't really identify right off the bat. This list will also be in no particular order. Instead, I thought it would be more interesting to start with the ones that were maybe more obvious and then end off on the ones that you maybe wouldn't expect quite so much. So without further ado, let's get straight into our Valentine's Day list of top final girl crushes. Laurie from Halloween. Obviously, Jamie Lee Curtis is a beautiful woman. That is very clear to see just by looking at her. That isn't what draws me to Laurie or to Jamie Lee Curtis in general, because to be honest, I always find every time that I see her in anything that she's very engaging. It seems like she's having just a good time in every single role. I find just joy and happiness to be a very attractive trait. What is it about Laurie's character that makes her not only a contender for this list, but a very obvious contender? Well, first of all, there's the fact that Jamie Lee Curtis is the scream queen and Laurie is the role that kind of originated all of that for most people. But for me specifically, I think the thing that makes Laurie stand out amongst final girls is the fact that in the first movie, she isn't all that strong. I'm sorry if you remember her otherwise. Go back and watch that. She spends a lot of time not knowing that Michael Myers even exists, and then when she does, it's a lot of hiding and running and screaming and then getting saved by Dr. Loomis at the end.
What's the boogeyman?
As a matter of fact, it was.
Which, you know, she was a teenager, I can't blame her for that. But as the movies progress, and by that I mean the movies where she's still alive, we're gonna just ignore the Jamie Lloyd storyline for a little bit here. The movies where we see Laurie still alive, we see that she is not only still dealing with this, Laurie is the ultimate example of someone who could have been a victim, but instead decided to turn it around and become a survivor. And in some ways, that doesn't always translate very obviously. For example, in Halloween 2018, we see that she has literally become sheltered. She refuses to speak to anyone. She is constantly afraid that Michael Myers is gonna come out and attack her at any moment. And as much as that's sad to see, it's also very just inspiring at the end of the movie to watch her pull herself up and refuse to take this anymore and stand up against Michael to protect the people that she loves. And I just find that such a beautiful inspirational trait.
You don't believe in the boogeyman?
Nancy from Nightmare on Elm Street. Again, Heather Langenkamp, beautiful woman. When we're introduced to Nancy, she is a teenager, again, very similar to Laurie. She's being faced with this problem for the very first time, but unlike Laurie, Nancy actually stands up from minute one and refuses to take it just ever.
Booby traps and improvised anti-personnel devices? Well, what are you reading that for?
I'm into survival.
The minute that she finds out that there is this supernatural entity that is hunting down and killing her friends, she's doing research, she's trying to figure everything out, she's looking into booby traps, she's like, no final girl should have a harder time than Nancy getting this done, and yet Nancy plays it off like she can just get it done immediately. But that's not why I love her. As much as that first one is a very good representation of Nancy as a strong, independent woman, then we got Nightmare on Elm Street 3.
Never sleep again.
Where we see that after the events of the first movie, Nancy continued to not let this happen. She went to school to learn about dreams so that she could go on and help other teenagers with their own Freddy-esque problems. It would have been very easy for Nancy to just step out and not deal with this ever again, but the fact that she's willing to keep going, even though Nightmare on Elm Street 2 does indicate that she had some PTSD issues along the way.
Some chick was locked in there by her mother and she went crazy. She watched her boyfriend get butchered across the street by some maniac.
It's still just amazing to see the strength that this character is capable of.
Whatever you do, don't fall asleep.
Catherine McMichaels from Beyond. Catherine McMichaels is played by Barbara Crampton, yet another Scream Queen, and yet another gorgeous woman, but we're just gonna, if I dwell on that for all of these women, you guys realize that I'm just gonna start off every single entry in this with, this woman's beautiful, because that's so obvious. We all know that all of these women are beautiful. Let's just move on from that. Anyway, when we're introduced to Catherine McMichaels, we see her as a scientist who is just desperately trying to find answers to her own past. No, she doesn't have a Freddy or a Michael Myers, but her father suffered from schizophrenia, and so she has entered into the mental health field in an attempt to try and figure out what happened to her father. Over the course of the movie, however, we see her get both figuratively and literally seduced by what is on the other side of our reality. It's rare that you see the mad scientist character represented as a woman, so that right off the bat gained her some points for me. This outfit also didn't hurt. I swear you guys, it's about more than just the outfit, really.
I just love what you've done with this room.
Geraldine from Demon Knight. So there's this story that I don't know if it's entirely true. I just remember hearing that when Jada Pinkett Smith went to audition for Gotham, she went to audition with a man on a leash. I don't know if I need to continue this story, you guys. Any horror movie that Jada Pinkett Smith plays a final girl, Mr. Will Smith, you are a very lucky man. Geraldine is probably my favorite role of Jada Pinkett Smith's, however. When we're introduced to her, she's an ex-convict, just kind of working out of this hotel, trying to make ends meet. We can tell pretty quickly that Geraldine doesn't really have that high of an opinion of herself or her station in life at this point, but she suddenly finds herself just completely in an entirely different life when this guy shows up one night and offers her this key with Jesus' blood in it, and now all of a sudden demons are killing her. Usually in these types of stories where we have one character who starts out kind of at a low station in life and then over the course of the story is given more responsibility and eventually becomes a hero, usually in those situations, I see these characters respond by just becoming completely overwhelmed by all of the responsibility that they suddenly have and refusing to cope with it. And I can understand that. I would probably respond that way too, to be honest. That just isn't what Geraldine does. Instead, she just stands up from minute one and says, no, I'm gonna take this. This is now my responsibility. I'm going to destroy all these demons. I don't know. There's just something kind of hot about that. I don't know if it's realistic, but it is kind of hot.
Look at you. You must be in exquisite pain, all covered with blood.
Not my blood.
Strash from Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. Stretch is played by Caroline Williams in what I believe to be her most recognizable role. She's a radio DJ who just happens to get mixed up in all of the Sawyer family's problems when a caller on her show is randomly murdered by chainsaw. And from this point forward, the Sawyer family tries to hunt Stretch down in an attempt to get those audio clips back. But the complication comes in when Leatherface ends up falling in love with her. Stretch is one of those characters that I find to be incredibly strong, but in a not very traditional way. I've even seen people say that she's very sexist in her portrayal, because she does very much use her sexuality in an attempt to get out of any of these situations with Leatherface. Because, you know, ooh, girl pretty, he's suddenly able to get her through to the end of the movie. But I think that the thing that makes Stretch more interesting than that is just based off of the fact that she is very aware of what she's doing the entire movie. She notices right away that Leatherface has an interest in her and she plays on that. Yes, it's manipulative, but you also have to keep in mind that Leatherface is Leatherface, and you would do literally anything it took to get out of the situation. Stretch has some resilience that I don't even know if I would be capable of, man. Like, there's one scene where Leatherface just literally tears her friend's face off and then puts it on her, still warm, because he thinks that's romantic. And yet somehow, Stretch has the ability to overcome obvious, very real revulsion to be able to get through to what she needs to do to survive to the next moment. And because of that, I very much believe that she has earned a place on this list. Clear Rivers from Final Destination. When we're introduced to Clear Rivers, we see that she's an artist first and foremost. She has a very open mind, and that's why she's able to accept the things that are happening very quickly. She's very creative, very driven, and once again we get another scene in a sequel where someone tries to pull her back into what's going on, and in this situation, it's very much a Laurie situation where you can tell that she has not gotten over what has happened to her, and neither really should she. She's been forced to enter herself into a hospital only so that they can keep literal death away from her constantly. And when these people approach her, asking her to help them, it's slightly different only because it kind of is a guaranteed death sentence for her. She knows that leaving the hospital will mean her own death, and yet she still does it. I don't know how you find the strength to be that selfless for a group of strangers, besides just absolute compassion for just everyone that is so beautiful to see.
The design is flawed. It can be beaten.
Veronica from The Fly. Hey, did you guys know that Gina Davis is actually an archer in real life?
Ladies, you're welcome for the inspiration.
Okay, so The Fly. Let's talk about that for a little bit. In this movie, Gina Davis is playing opposite her real-life boyfriend at the time, Jeff Goldblum, later her husband, and then later on her ex. But in this movie, you can very much see the chemistry between them, and you can tell how much she cares for Seth, as much as their relationship starts out one of business. She's a reporter, very much that Lois Lane type trope that I make fun of every once in a while, but in this situation, it does kind of work because there is an extra layer to her. She's not just, you know, very strong businesswoman who must get the answers at all costs necessary. She does have her soft moments. She does have things that she cares about, most importantly, Seth and the baby that she's developing inside her, and that she doesn't know if it's going to be okay. But she still keeps visiting Seth, trying to find answers, trying to figure out what's going on with him, trying to figure out what's going on with her baby. And even though it's terrifying, and I can't even imagine how horrible this situation is, to suddenly find yourself in the process of becoming a mother to something that you don't even think is human anymore, and watching the same thing happen to someone that you once loved. This is a beyond horrible situation to be in my opinion, and the fact that Veronica is able to handle it with literally any grace, I think is just so inspiring to see.
Be afraid. Be very afraid.
Cherry Darlin from Planet Terror. Rose McGowan admittedly met a much worse fate in Quentin Tarantino's Grindhouse entry. In Robert Rodriguez's entry, however, Cherry Darlin is amazing, you guys. So we're introduced to her as this go-go dancer without much of a past, and as we continue to get to know her, we realize that that's because she just changes her name all the time, moves to different places. We don't really know all that much about her backstory. What we do know is that she has a great attitude, especially towards anyone who tries to take advantage of her.
Any girl leaving early must check out with her finger and have a bye-bye slip. Here's my finger. And here's my bye-bye slip.
We know that she ends up getting attacked by zombies and loses her leg in the process, and probably should have just crawled in a hole and died at that point. But instead, she replaces her leg with a gun. I don't think I need to justify this crush anything more than that, you guys. She replaces her leg with a gun.
What name do you go by now?
Cherry. Cherry Darling.
Wendy from Street Trash. I believe this may have been the only role that Jane Arakawa had. I could be wrong. Let me just check her IMDb quickly. Oh, please forgive me. She played Drunk Woman in Pink Slip. Street Trash is just kind of an odd movie altogether. It's very much an example of body horror. We have this conflict where these homeless people are gaining access to this beverage that somehow makes them explode. The way that Wendy enters into the whole situation is that she seems to be the only person in the entire town who actually cares about giving homeless people a home. She's not necessarily doing it in that whole petition sort of way that we see in like Dr. Horrible Cinelon blog.
Would you help? No?
Wow, I really only understand the world in terms of movies, don't I? Instead, what Wendy is doing is that she is basically just kind of forcing her boss to not have a choice to let homeless people continue to sleep in this junkyard that she works in. Which, yeah, you could argue that she could be helping them find better homes, but considering she's literally the only character in this movie that seems to have any semblance of morality, it's nice to see. And not to mention, the strength that Jane Arakawa just brings to this role is very attractive.
That's right, Mr. Snizer. My ass belongs in your chair, not in your lap, which is where you keep trying to put it, which I don't appreciate one little bit.
Hey,
And here we have it, my pets, our least obvious one yet. Cassie Hack from Hack and Slash. Hack and Slash, if you weren't aware of it, is a comic series that takes a very close look at the slasher genre, both in a very parody sort of way and in a very loving sort of way. Our protagonists are Vlad, who's kind of like Jason Voorhees if he had the personality of a cinnamon roll, and then we have Cassie, who is kind of his counterpoint in the sense that she's this young, cute, attractive girl with this just absolute attitude, and she's goth. Like, she's just goth and amazing. All of her outfits are amazing. And I don't know, there's just something about Cassie's journey that I've always been incredibly drawn to. I think that part of the reason why I hold her in such high regard, personally, is because I discovered this comic series at just the right time. I was about 16 years old and coming to terms with my own pansexuality. At the time, I referred to myself as bisexual. Cassie was this character who was this very tough, rambunctious, spunky goth girl who refused to take anything from anyone and was going to go out there and get what she wanted. And then she got flustered when she met a cute boy or girl because yes, Cassie Hack is bi. And I could not have asked for a more cool bi icon growing up, I have to admit. I find there to be something very endearing about watching this awesome character who could definitely beat me up at any moment. When we see her come from that persona to very shy and flustered and socially awkward and not knowing how to navigate literally any social situation, I don't know, I just felt that on a very intimate level that I never felt a character before. She could be both vulnerable and strong, which I think is the thing that all final girls really need to encapsulate. Yes, they need to have that moment where you fear for them, where you want to see them come out okay, but then every single time, we need to see them overcome. I hope I gave you something this Valentine's Day, whether that be inspiration or a new crush, either's good. But I think that's it from me today. Thank you so much for watching, my pets, and have a happy Valentine's Day. Love you.
And now, I bid you a long kiss. Good night.
Although donating to my Patreon is unnecessary, it is hugely appreciated. As little as $3 a month could help me put out many more videos. In that note, I would like to thank Wilson L. Ricks III, Scott Falks, and Andre K. Thank you so much for your support. It means the world to me. I can't wait to see you all next time.